Malcolm was nervous to Malcolm was nervous as he waited for his passport to be inspected. He felt the American passport symbolized the opposite of what Islam stands for. They had to argue with the judge at the entrance about Malcolm. The group that he was with had to argue about him. Malcolm had to go to the high court to prove that he was a Muslim. Malcolm was forced to stay in Jeddah, so his friends had to continue to Mecca without him. The friends that he had met up until that point had to continue without him. The officials took Malcolm's passport, and Malcolm felt like he was in a bad situation because he didn't have his passport and he didn't speak the native language. So he's around all these people, he doesn't have a passport, and he doesn't even speak the language. So that's a very rough situation, I can only imagine. Malcolm ended up staying in a dorm. Someone taught him the proper prayer ritual posture. He writes, quote, "Imagine being a Muslim minister, a leader in Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam, and not knowing the prayer ritual," end quote. He says, quote, "Western ankles won't do what Muslim ankles have done for a lifetime," end quote. Malcolm noticed the importance that Muslims placed on their prayer rugs. Everyone had a personal rug, and families would share a large rug. This reminded Malcolm of the Oriental rugs that he stole while he was in Boston and the value that they had. Malcolm was talking with a man who didn't speak English when he mentioned the name Cassius Clay. People started thinking Malcolm was Cassius Clay. Muslims were proud of Muhammad Ali. Malcolm says, quote, "I was angry with myself for not having taken the time to learn more of the Orthodox prayer and rituals before leaving America," end quote. Malcolm eventually got hungry, but he wasn't used to the concept of having a meal in one large bowl and everyone eating with their hands. They all ate as one and slept as one. Malcolm writes, quote, "Everything about the pilgrimage atmosphere accented the oneness of man under one God," end quote. Then Malcolm remembered that he had the phone number of Dr. Shawarbi's son. Once he spoke to Dr. Shawarbi's son, Malcolm was released in less than half an hour. Malcolm writes, quote, "I had heard for years of Muslim hospitality, but one couldn't quite imagine such warmth," end quote. Malcolm met Dr. Azam's family. Dr. Azam is the guy who got him out of the dorm. He writes, quote, "Each of them embraced me." Malcolm writes, quote, "Each of them embraced me as though I were a long-lost child," end quote. Malcolm says, quote, "That white man, Dr. Azam's father, at least he would have been considered white in America, related to Arabia's ruler, he was related to Arabia's ruler, to whom he was a close advisor. Truly an international man, with nothing in the world to gain, and given up his suite to me for my transient comfort," end quote. At this time, Malcolm writes, quote, "The only organization that I had was just a few weeks old. I had no job. I had no money. Just to get over there, I had to borrow money from my sister," end quote. Malcolm says that morning he began to, quote, "reappraise the white man," end quote. In America, white man meant specific attitudes and actions towards the black man and other non-whites. But in the Muslim world, men with white complexions were more genuinely brotherly than he had ever seen. Malcolm had met one of the most powerful Muslim men in the world. Malcolm says, quote, "The man acted as if they were brothers of mine. The elder Dr. Azam as if he was my father," end quote. Malcolm says, quote, "That elder Dr. Azam spoke of the racial lineage of the descendants of Muhammad the Prophet, and he showed how they were both black and white," end quote. Also, he pointed out how color problems exist in the Muslim world. Malcolm went to see the judge the next day and was recorded in the holy register of the true Muslims and was allowed to continue to Hajj. Malcolm says that Mecca seemed as ancient as time itself. They parked near the Great Mosque. When Malcolm saw the Kaaba, He described it as, quote, a huge black stone in the middle of the great mosque, end quote. There were thousands of people circling the Kaaba. Quote,